We're telling you this morning in the papers that the school's baptism barrier has been scrapped and Catholic primary schools will no longer be able to use a baptism cert to choose pupils for entry under changes agreed by the Cabinet. Michael Nugent of Atheist Ireland joins me now. Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Good morning.
Have you popped open the champagne this morning?
Well, obviously we welcome part of this announcement. We've campaigned since we were founded in 2008 to end the scandal of overt religious discrimination in access to schools. We've raised the issue in Ireland, in Europe and at the United Nations, and it's a core part of our Schools Equality Pact, which calls for PACT, stands for Patronage, Access, Curriculum and Teaching, and access is key to that. So this is part of a pattern of Irish government starting to address the breaches in our schools of the rights of secular and minority faith students. The schools are no longer legally obliged to integrate religion throughout the school day. ETB second-level schools now have to give pupils a timetable alternative to religion, and now the majority of schools won't be able to discriminate in access on the ground of religion. But it's important to recognise that those developments on their own will not end the breaches of constitutional and human rights in our schools. And it's not just about baptism certs, it's about the right to equal participation in all aspects of state-funded schools for all children, regardless of the beliefs of their parents. This is another welcome development, but it's not the end of the road yet.
Right. So what would be the end of the road? What's the ultimate goal?
Well, the ultimate goal is that everybody is treated equally in the education system, and that the religious beliefs or non-religious beliefs of the parents of the children are not taken into account when giving the children an education. Now, we would be just as opposed to the state supporting atheism as we are to the state supporting religion. It still has to address, even within this, the second part, which we're still concerned about, it still gives the right of what it calls minority religion schools to continue to discriminate on the grounds of access.
Right. And so that would be, for example, if there was a Muslim school in the area, they will still be able to prioritise Muslim children getting entry to that school, yeah?
Exactly, or a Church of Ireland school or something like that.
You don't agree with that either?
No, we don't, because, for example, at the moment, Church of Ireland schools will discriminate against evangelicals, and the Muslim schools are Sunni schools, so they discriminate against Ahmadi Muslims. So what that is doing is it's giving some minority religions privilege to discriminate over other minority religions and over atheists, and ironically also over Catholics, in the cases where maybe a Catholic parent might want their child to go to a Church of Ireland school because it's the most suitable school for them, or because they prefer the ethos even though their religion is different. So it's now that only counts for about 5% of the schools. So overall this is addressing the bulk of the numerically of the discrimination. But it's important that we don't forget people who are left behind because their local school that they want to go to is a minority faith one, and so they are still discriminated against except just by a different religion.
Right. So if you had your way, religion would not come into education at all?
Well, it would come in one very important way, which is that students should be taught about religions and beliefs. It's an important aspect of society. So schools should teach children about religions and beliefs in an objective, critical and pluralistic way. But state-funded schools should not teach children that any particular religion is true, and nor should they teach children that atheism is true. They should leave that to families and churches and the child's own developing ability to make up their own mind as they grow older and capable of doing so.
But the days of Catholic schools giving priority to children who are baptised, have the cert, will end if this is enacted. So that would be an important step for you.
A very important step, but it's equally important to see it in the context of, first of all, that it is part of the pattern now of the government starting to recognise these rights and that they have to address them, but that they have to go a bit further because, I mean, when you think about it, there's no huge advantage in getting access to a school that's still allowed to discriminate against you once you get in, and that is still allowed to evangelise Catholicism once you get into the school. So those issues still remain to be addressed, but it is a very welcome step that this particular aspect of the problem has been addressed.
Mind you, the vast majority of people, I would suspect, who are listening to me and you this morning went to, I'm assuming, national primary schools with the Catholic ethos and say that they got a very good education there and it didn't cause them any harm?
Well, some do and some don't, and obviously the very good education is welcome. I mean, but they can do the very good education without indoctrinating people in religion, which they're not supposed to do. The state should not be financing schools or indeed any agencies of the state to indoctrinate people in a particular religion. They would immediately recognise the problem if you had the exact same thing the other way around. If the schools were giving the exact same good education in the subjects that people want a good education in, but if they were also actively teaching children that there's no God, people would immediately go, well, that's wrong. Stop teaching children that there's no God. You know, we're entitled to bring up our children to believe that there is a God, as they are. But they would immediately realise that it's wrong for schools to be imposing on that. So the same applies the other way around. They can still continue to run very good schools, but keep the religion to churches. The phrase that we use is teach, don't preach. Teach in schools, preach in churches.
Okay, right. I should say, if any of you have any views on this, if your child is going to primary school, a national school, and in some way associated or affiliated with the Catholic Church, what do you make of this? Did you get your child baptised just to get into the local primary school, or do you think this is a bad idea? Feel free to get in touch with us. 51155 for your text. Start with the letters KFM or call 045 901 490. Just in case people think that this is a fait accompli, though, it's important to say, Michael, that we still need to leave this up to the old TDs because this has to be enacted in legislation.
It does, and to complicate things further, you know, we're in an era now where we don't have a majority government, so it has to be negotiated effectively with the other political parties in the Oireachtas. And there's another bill also going through on sex education that was put forward by the Solidarity Party. So the issue is complicated now in that there are bills coming from the opposition side of the House as well as the government side of the House on these type of things. But it's part of a pattern. The pattern is that successive governments are recognising that schools have been breaching the rights, and indeed still are, of minority faith families and atheists and secular families. They're starting to address this, and they still have a long way to go, but we welcome the first part of today's announcement.
But is it not a sad pattern in a country where the vast majority of people are of the Catholic faith and where 18 out of 20 primary schools have a Catholic ethos? Is that not a sad pattern that we're forgetting and neglecting the faith of the majority of people in this country?
No, everybody is perfectly entitled to practice their religion, and Atheist Ireland works alongside religious groups like the Ahmadi Muslims and the Evangelical Alliance to actively support the right of freedom of religion. We actively support the right of everybody to practice their religion as long as they're not interfering with the rights of others. In order to protect equally the rights of everybody to practice their religion or their non-religious beliefs, the state has to remain neutral. The state can't be taking sides. So what the state removing itself from supporting one belief over another is doing is actually supporting religious beliefs rather than hindering it.
OK, Michael, thank you for your reaction to that. Michael Nugent of Atheist Ireland.